The church doors swung open with a force that silenced the entire congregation, and there he stood, drenched from the rain, chest heaving, eyes desperately searching through the crowd of perfectly dressed guests until they found her. Mara's bouquet of white roses trembled in her hands as she stood frozen at the altar, her veil catching the afternoon light filtering through stained glass windows. The man she had loved with every fiber of her being for 6 years, the man who had shattered her into 1,000 pieces, had chosen this moment, this sacred, irreversible moment, to come back. Her fiancé David's hand tightened around hers, but she couldn't look at him. She could only stare at Ethan, standing there in the doorway like a ghost from a life she had buried, and feel the earth crack open beneath her feet. If you believe in second chances, in the power of love that refuses to die, and in the strength it takes to choose your own happiness, please hit that like button, drop a comment below sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to this channel. Your support means the world, and this story is about to take you on an emotional journey you won't forget. 3 years had passed since the day Ethan walked out of Mara's apartment with nothing but a backpack and a weak excuse about needing to find himself. She had begged him to stay, had fallen to her knees in a way that still made her cheeks burn with shame when she remembered it. They had built a life together, planned a future that included a small house with a blue door, 2 children, and Sunday mornings making pancakes in their pajamas. But Ethan had felt trapped, suffocated by the weight of commitment and routine. He had looked at her with eyes that no longer saw her, had kissed her forehead like she was a distant relative, and had simply left. For months afterward, Mara had moved through life like a woman underwater, everything muffled and distorted, her lungs constantly burning for air she couldn't quite reach. Her friends had rallied around her with wine and tissues and fierce declarations that Ethan was an idiot who didn't deserve her. Her mother had held her while she sobbed, stroking her hair and whispering that time would heal everything, even though Mara was certain that some wounds were simply too deep. And slowly, painfully, she had learned to exist without him. She had changed her routines, avoided the coffee shop where they used to share croissants on Saturday mornings, deleted every photo from her phone in one cathartic wine-fueled evening. She had forced herself to go on dates that felt like performing a role in a play she hadn't auditioned for, smiling through dinners with men who were perfectly nice but who weren't Ethan. And then she had met David at a mutual friend's barbecue on a summer evening that smelled like grilled corn and possibility. David was steady where Ethan had been volatile, predictable where Ethan had been chaotic. He was a high school teacher who coached basketball and volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends. He looked at Mara like she was something precious and rare, listened when she talked about her work as a graphic designer, remembered that she liked her coffee with oat milk and a dash of cinnamon. He didn't make her heart race the way Ethan had, didn't make her feel like she was constantly standing on the edge of a cliff waiting to either fly or fall, but that, her therapist had assured her, was actually a good thing. Love didn't have to be a roller coaster. It could be a warm bath, a comfortable sweater, a steady hand to hold. When David proposed on a beach at sunset with a ring his grandmother had worn, Mara had said yes without hesitation. She had convinced herself that she was ready, that she had healed, that the ghost of Ethan no longer haunted the corners of her heart. She had thrown herself into wedding planning with an enthusiasm that sometimes felt forced but which she hoped would eventually feel natural. She had chosen. Flowers and cake flavors and seating arrangements, had said yes to a dress that made her look like a princess from a fairy tale. She had practiced her vows until they sounded genuine, had told herself repeatedly that she was making the right choice, that David was the kind of man who would never leave her standing alone in an empty apartment wondering what she had done wrong. But now, standing at the altar with her future husband beside her, and her past standing in the doorway, Mara felt the carefully constructed walls she had built around her heart begin to crumble. The priest had stopped mid-sentence, his mouth hanging open in confusion. The string quartet in the corner had gone silent. Her maid of honor, Jessica, had grabbed her arm as if to steady her, but Mara felt like she was falling anyway, tumbling backward through 3 years of healing and growth and careful reconstruction. Ethan started walking down the aisle, and with each step, Mara could see the changes in him. His hair was longer, touching his collar in a way she had always loved. He had a new scar above his left eyebrow that she wanted to trace with her finger and ask about. But it was his eyes that destroyed her. They were filled with a desperate certainty that she remembered. From their best days together, the look he used to get when he would pull her close in the middle of the night and whisper that she was his whole world. David released her hand and she heard him say something, his voice tight with controlled emotion. But the words didn't register. Her entire universe had narrowed to Ethan moving toward her with the determination of a man who had finally figured out what he had lost. When Ethan reached the front of the church, he didn't look at David or acknowledge the 200 guests who were watching this scene unfold with a mixture of horror and fascination. He looked only at Mara, and his voice when he spoke was raw and broken. He told her that leaving had been the worst mistake of his life, that he had spent 3 years trying to outrun his love for her, and had finally realized that some things were meant to chase you forever. He told her about the therapy he had gone through, the work he had done to understand his fear of commitment, his terror of being vulnerable. He told her that he had bought a house with a blue door, that he had learned to make pancakes from her mother's recipe, that he woke up every morning reaching for her and finding only empty space. If this story is touching your heart, if you're feeling the weight of these emotions, please take a moment to comment below with your thoughts. Would you choose the safe love or the passionate one? I'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to like and share if this story is resonating with you. Mara stood there, torn between two lives, two versions of herself. David represented safety, stability, a love that wouldn't break her. Ethan represented everything she had ever wanted, but also everything that had once destroyed her. She looked at David and saw hurt mixed with understanding in his eyes, saw a man who loved her enough to let her make this choice without pressure. She looked at Ethan and saw the boy she had fallen in love with mixed with a man who had finally grown up, who had done the hard work of becoming someone worthy of the love she offered. The silence in the church stretched like a taut wire about to snap. Mara closed her eyes and felt both her past and her future pressing against her chest, demanding she choose. And in that moment, she realized that the answer had been inside her all along, written in the way her heart had never quite stopped belonging to the man who broke it, in the way she had never loved David with the fierce, consuming intensity that love deserved to be felt. She turned to David, tears streaming down her face, and whispered an apology that would never be enough. Then she lifted her dress, kicked off her heels, and walked down the aisle, not away from her wedding, but toward it, toward the only man she had ever truly wanted to marry, even if the timing had been all wrong until this very moment. Comment below right now, would you have stayed or would you have run? They left the church together, Ethan and Mara hand in hand, stepping out into the rain that had started as a storm but was now just a gentle mist. Behind them was chaos and confusion, hurt feelings, and a reception that would go on without a bride. Ahead of them was uncertainty, the hard work of rebuilding trust, the risk that history might repeat itself. But as Ethan pulled her close and kissed her like he was breathing her in, like she was oxygen after years of suffocation, Mara knew she had made the only choice her heart would allow. Sometimes the safe path isn't the right one. Sometimes love demands that you take the risk, that you choose the person who makes you feel most alive, even if they once made you feel most broken. Sometimes your ex comes back on your wedding day, and you have to be brave enough to admit that you've been marrying the wrong man all along.